So like Dave Merrick said, kind of a repeat of last year where we kind of led, I guess I wouldn't say ended last year, but some little bit of overlap, some stuff that we're doing, some integrations that we've worked on over the last year. Went with the Star Wars theme this year, a little different, mix it up. All right, so I'm going to go over our municipal fire department's deployment of TAC, a little bit of our U.S. Implementation, and then integrations that we've had over the years. All right, so a little bit about me. I started my career in '94 with the Forest Service. I spent the majority of my 5 years with the Forest Service on El Cristo Hotshots. If you're not familiar with the fire service, and Hotshot Crews is a 20-person crew that goes out into those austere environments, and you're using chainsaws and hand tools and cutting line, doing firing operations. And so learning to read a map, a topo map, knowing your direction, understanding comms is very important. And I kind of took to that on the crew. One of my captains was former Army comms, and he kind of took me under his wing and taught me about all that stuff. And reading maps, and I remember the first time we got a GPS on the crew and then got one with the screen, and how profoundly, it's like the technology, like, wow, we have a map. No color on it, but I could see myself, on a map, which is pretty cool. So I did that for 5 years, left, went to paramedic school for a couple years, and then went to CAL FIRE, another heavy wildland fire agency. There I took an overhead assignment called Field Observer. And now you're working under the plan section on these large fires, and you're going out and collecting intelligence. And so we started, we would use GPS waypoints, and I would have to go in and mark a waypoint and say what it was, and I would bring it back. And then we had a program with DNR out of Minnesota where we could bring all that data in, bring it into ArcGIS, and put it on, make one of these maps right here. And these were paper maps that would go out into the field and would be produced daily or sometimes twice daily. And so I did that for a number of years, and then I got a wild hair and thought, let me try local government. Let's see what that's all about. So I've been with Corona Fire the last 16 years. I'm an engine captain on a special assignment right now up in headquarters, running our EMS program / technology. I took that position because it does allow me, it's hard to do these technology integrations when you work on shift, when you have a rotating shift. So I took that bullet to work on these sort of projects. And so when I was with CAL FIRE, I was doing that field observer position, working for a position called the situation unit leader. And I wanted to get in that higher level. So I got on an incident management team, and now managing the folks that are going out collecting this intelligence, managing the folks that bring the data into the GIS and making these maps. And I watched kind of the slow technology evolution. And when we got, Avenza, and being able to see yourself on the operations map and how profound that was. And when I finally found TAC, it was like everything I had ever wanted. So who we are with Corona Fire, we're a local government fire department in Southern California, halfway between San Diego and LA. We run about 14,000 calls a year. We border the Forest Service and CAL FIRE jurisdictions. We run mutual aid with seven adjoining other agencies. A population of about 150,000 major freeway, major rail, commercial, residential apartments. And I tell you all that in a small airport. Our daily staffing of 33, 7 stations, a battalion chief, 6 medic engines, 2 paramedic trucks, hazmat unit, and we have a lot of wildland fire agreements. We staff wildland, both in overhead, and we send out engines a lot. I say that because we're a small agency, but we're heavily involved regionally. And how we got here, I tell this story. So end of 16, I got off the CAL FIRE teams. I was exhausted. We'd had a pretty good, long fire seasons. I wanted to finish some education goals. And so I got off the teams, and we couldn't just kind of pool roster. If someone needed a substitute, they would call me and say, hey, can you sub on a team? And depending on what's going on, oh yeah, I'll sub. And I got called to the Mendocino complex up in Northern California in 2018, subbing, assisting on a fire as a situation unit leader. And I had a specific role filling out this form called an ICS 209. It's a situation a summary. It's done 0618 every day, and you've got kind of a gap in the middle of the day to, figure out some stuff to do. And so I saw the National Guard was there, and I understood in 2017 they started bringing the MQ-9s on in Northern California when they started having the fires in Napa. And I was kind of intrigued, and I asked the other situation there, how are the MQ-9s working out? He said, it's pretty good. They're right over there. You can go talk to them. And prior to that, 2014, on the rim fire, we had an MQ-1 Predator, and it was mind-blowing. It was definitely R&D, and now the MQ-9s are becoming a standard operation on these CAL FIRE incidents when we had these large fires. So I met up with the National Guard folks, seeing what they were doing. They were using Google Earth, which kind of shocked me a little bit, a commercial off-the-shelf product. They were rubber sheeting the operations map, and I thought, well, I know a better way to do this. Let me get you a geospatial map so you can, if you've ever rubber sheeted a map before, there's some definitely agony in that. And so I watching the guys do it, I thought, man, this is cool. This is aircraft at 29,000 feet. We're bringing in perimeters 3-4 times a day. They were still kind of siloed. We brought them in a map. Operations could see them, make some decisions based on it, but it was definitely back at the base camp. It wasn't being sent forward. A couple of days in the incident, I got a phone call from a friend of mine, Todd Tuggle, another situation unit leader, and he had received a phone call from a gentleman named Eric Aslan. I had never met this gentleman before from the Forest Service, and Todd tells me this guy called me. He found me on LinkedIn, and he saw an article where I was talking about infrared imagery, and he's talking about this Android program. I'm on iOS. I don't know what he's talking about, but I gave him your number. Are you okay with that? And I said, well, you already gave him my number. I guess I'll to screen my calls, I'll answer the phone. So I talked to Eric, and he told me about ATAC, and he told me about how we could bring in this MQ-9 data onto a tablet or a phone. And the live geospatial, the same map that I was watching side by side with Google Earth, I could have overlaid onto my map. I thought that sounds pretty cool. So about an hour talking to him, I said, okay, I don't have an Android, but I'm close to a Walmart, and I went about the nicest thing I could get there, a Samsung Tab A. The next day, he walks me through this ATAC implementation, and it's foreign to me. I was an iOS guy, and we work on getting the maps, the topo, or the operations maps in there, and then we had to finagle some stuff to get the video in. And when that happened, man, everything kind of fired in my head. The synapse is like, oh my gosh, look what we can do with this. If I have connectivity in the field, I could give this to our branches, our operations folks that may be a little bit in the dark about where the fire is, because it's very smoky and how fast it's burning. And so we bring that to the operations folks. They're at dinner, and I show them this tablet, and they're like, what is that? I said, that's the same thing that's in the operations tent. And well, how did you get that? And I'm like, it's a long story. But so they're FaceTiming as much as they can, the operations folks, anybody that's connectivity in the field, showing this imagery. I got taken off that fire. They removed me from the fire. They brought me up to Northern California to our Northern Operations Center. They flew Eric out, and we did some briefings to some folks on different fires in the region, because we had a lot of fires on this capability. I left the incident after 21 days, really thinking, okay, this is awesome for what we do here in these large wildfires. What could I do at my home agency? And came home, and Mike Leckleiter here was my kind of partner in crime, big Android user, and I show him this. I said, well, what else can we do with this, you think? And he's like, I think we could do a lot of things here locally. So a couple months later, I subbed again on a fire, or on a week, and we got the Camp Fire. If you're not familiar with that fire in Northern California, nearly destroyed the whole town of Paradise, the highest fatality fire we've had in hundreds of years in this country. And we were on my way up there. I called Eric and I said, what can we do? And we brought in a lot of integration on that incident. And we really road mapped what we considered, what can we do to get this information forward? And on that incident, that same gentleman, Todd Tuggle, who forwarded my number to Eric, was on a strike team. And a strike team, he was a strike team leader. So he's a battalion chief. He's got 5 engines with him, and he's out doing point protection on this radio communications site. And he's forward in the field. He can't see the main fire. It's pitch black. And he calls me personally and says, can you give me any updated situation awareness? It's a 2-hour drive around for someone to kind of look and see where the fire's at. And I said, yeah, let's see what I can do. So we task an RC-26 aircraft to go fly that area. They give me a polygon, essentially. And now I email that back to him and bringing that in to Google Earth. Knowing what ATAC could do, I was like, boy, we could really lower the latency here if I had, we have connectivity. He can call and email. Imagine if I could drop that into TAC and just push it to him. Or I wouldn't have to do anything. He saw the aircraft and he just saw the polygon. And you'll see some slides forward where we're at now with that sort of technology. So on that incident, another key kind of thing for the incident commander was, this is the first operations map here on the left. This is the MQ-9 flying. You can see the sensor point of interest there off in the canyon. And the incident commander from CAL FIRE the line in the sand was, if it crossed the Feather River, we're gonna engage the Forest Service and Unified Command. And it's smoky. The air attack can't see, but the MQ-9 can see through the smoke. And so you can see there, I've got the ops map, and then I've got the video on the right. And I can tell him, hey, Chief, come over here, look at this. And he's like, what is this? I said, it's a live video right there of the ops map. You're real close. You're almost to your trigger point. By the time you pick up the phone call, the fire's probably going to be down across the river. So it's just another example of bringing this real-time info to people's hands. It's not just set up in a tent somewhere where only one person can see it. We can distribute it across the team. All right, so bringing it into Corona. So I call it our crawl, walk, run, fly approach. We make a decision. Actually, on that incident, I told Mike, okay, we have to do this. Like, now I'm really seeing some more powerful things we could do with TAC. We only had this tool for a couple months in our hands. And so we were at a pivotal point technology-wise. We also do, we're paramedics. We do field care reporting. We were doing field care reporting on a Windows product that was just really clunky. It was very expensive. It was just a field, Windows tablet. And we had old iOS phones that were in dire need of replacement. And so Mike wrote up a position paper, and we pushed it forward, and we had some trust from our chief. And, we just kind of laid it out there, like, look what we could do if we moved to Android. Look, we could bring TAC, we could get rid of these clunky Windows stuff pads and move into, I would consider modern times, because everyone was like, when are we moving to iPads? When are we moving to iPads? And I'm like, I think soon. Let's figure out the best opportunity here. So we moved to Android. There was some skepticism. Most of our guys have our iOS users. But once Mike did a lot of this heavy lifting, shouldn't take credit for it, taught a class to our folks on what we could do with our Android phones. They were astonished. They're like, wow, we can do all this? Yeah. And we made their life easier. One simple thing was just a widget on the phone to call the hospital, right on the home screen. No longer going to contacts, going through all this stuff. They just clicked a button. And that was kind of an outside attack, but just a key thing for them. I explained to them the open architecture of Android and how easy it is to integrate with. So right now our deployment is still those tablets. We have 2 tablets in the back of every fire engine. They're primarily made for EMS, but they're also run TAC on them, and they're a great way for a little bit bigger picture for whoever's running the incident, to have a little bit bigger screen running TAC. And when we have the phone for dismounted operations, so the company officer will take that phone with them. So the first year in our walk approach was, hey, I don't expect you guys to learn everything about TAC. We have a robust training catalog on our intranet, and we said, if you guys want to go ahead and learn all this extra stuff, go for it. But at this point, all I want you to do is when you get off that fire engine, you need to have that phone on you. And it was more from the battalion chief's perspective of C2, looking at where their folks were at. So if someone made a radio report, they could match that up where that person was at. I'm on the left flank of the fire. I'm about to hook it. They could start drawing and making a little essay about where the fire was at. And so this year we went to the walk approach. I said, all right, guys, we're going to do a little bit more. And I'm going to build this PowerPoint presentation. I'm going to put you through this training. And but I don't want to build it in a vacuum. What are you capable of? And resoundingly, everybody went through this training and was like, yeah, we can do this. And that was simple. Drop a point on a map, take a picture, draw a line, and so forth. Real basic stuff, and everyone was into it and successful. And so now we've brought it into our operational drills, and you'll see some of the slides here that show how we're using it, and that our guys are actually retaining this. And quite frankly, it sometimes takes an incident or a training incident for you to really click. You know, I talk about, you know, that intersection where you tell your city that there's going to be an accident here one day until someone puts up a stop sign. You know, we're going to kill somebody. You need to put up a stop sign. And then finally someone gets hit by a car, killed, and they put up a stop sign. Sometimes it takes that way with our guys too, with adopting some of this technology. They have to get that incident, or they have to get that training where it clicks and they go, oh. And I'll show you some of those slides. And we just had one about 3 weeks ago where it clicked. And now guys are going, okay, yep, I get it. You're not just crazy, AJ. All right. All right, so how we're deployed on our server side, we're using Team Connect from PAR as our main server. We like it. I don't have a robust IT department, so deploying TAC through Team Connect makes it very easy for us. It's a software as a service. Really easy for me and Mike to manage and deploy users and bring users on. It has the Team Beacon as well. It's similar to TAC before TAC Tracker came out. It was a way where if ATAC either wasn't on or wasn't installed on a device, we could just put Team Beacon and track people. It does an automatic launch at restart, makes it really easy. And federation to groups is very easy too. We do run some TAC servers, and we'll talk a little about Greg's efforts with us and Connor Spears. We're using it for bringing pulse point, CAD information, AVL, and ADSB tracking. It's basically a TAC server as a feed into our TAC devices. Hardware, we're running Samsung. S10 phones were dismounted. The S4 tablets are doing dual purpose. So they are EMS specifically, but a little bit bigger screen. And now our battalion chiefs are rolling the S7 Plus 13-inch screen, which they really like for a little bit bigger screen. And then protection, we're running the Juggernaut defense cases, similar you saw on Ian's presentation with the guys being able to latch in the devices to their body in RAM mount. Let's go forward. All right, connectivity. I was talking about a PACE plan. You know, our PACE, our P primary is mostly LTE, but it doesn't take long for us to get out of LTE coverage going up against the Cleveland National Forest. So we're on Verizon. It seems to be our best coverage right now. We're exploring some FirstNet and actually now moving T-Mobile as 5G hotspots for our U.S. operations as well. For offline, Motorola, we're moving to APX radios, so we have bought in with the Plugnix application, Beartooth MK2 for mesh networks, and we're in cell-denied areas, and we're also testing the Doodle Labs, which you'll see down there on another slide. Mesh as a whole, we are working with our local sheriff's department, talking about mesh downlinks. You know, if we have a helicopter with a video asset on it that can bring us video, well, how can we do that? Can we build out a mesh network over our county, backhaul that to the internet, and then bring that into our devices? And then accuracy stuff and GPS denied environments, we are testing the Neon TRXs as well. All right, so this is kind of a list of where I see us using TAC. You know, location, 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 real estate, right, is the number one thing. In emergency response, it typically is too. I don't need to know what type of emergency you have. I just need to know where it is at. I can change my costume when I get there. You know, just tell me where there's a problem and I'll get there and figure it out. So wildland fires, remote area rescues, wide area searches, confined space, hazmat, swift water, tactical response, and active shooter. We'll go through some of these here. So for wildland fire, I'm not going to take a super deep dive because Brad has a whole enterprise, big scale presentation coming up after mine. what we really like in the at least just initial attack is matching up that radio report with where that person is. So you have all fires start small. So as that fire is progressing in initial attack, our chiefs really love that. Points, polygons, lines, like Dave mentioned, fighting fire from a polygon. So marking the perimeter, drawing the initial control objectives, what is the box, calculating acreage, hazards, operational boundaries, things like that are really important, especially during IA. Leveraging existing data, so bringing in KMLs, KML network links, the Esri plugin or Esri data that you already have, and now with the plugin being matured, using that data as well. And then geospatial maps. At my last briefing, GeoPDF was an ask of probably me and Brad every day. Do you have GeoPDF yet? And then, Sean Bisgrove did his magic with his team, and they really brought in GeoPDFs at a whole level. It renders so well. And they kept tweaking it until it was perfect. So for our large wildfires, the incident management teams are producing these GeoPDFs. They're particularly using Avenza as an application, and now we're able to use that in TAC. And now ITAC as well. This is just some examples of existing data that you may have that is living in maybe a paper format, but is produced digitally. So this is our structured defense plans. So instead of having like what Dave has in a digital fashion, this is produced digitally, but it's a paper map, but it comes in a GeoPDF format, and I am able to bring this in and share it across anybody. They don't have to have my KML. I just give them this GeoPDF, and we have some boundaries, some markers in there, and can bring it right into TAC and overlay it. This is an example of a local fire. It's like they'll start small. So this is me on this fire, just mapping out, hearing radio traffic, seeing what I can see, getting reports from other people, and just drawing an initial polygon, putting a division marker, division boundaries, and you can see our units here. Some other good data we have on this is the green down below to the left, that's Forest Service land. The red areas are state controlled, and everything inside that yellow is city land. So we have this mutual aid, fire here, where we've got a Forest Service threat and CAL FIRE and our city resources. You'll see in the next slide, as we move on, the fire becomes, as we hike the fire and get more data from people, this becomes more refined. And now we can do a lot of calculations from this. I could calculate how many acres was on each person's DPA, marking snags. I mean, this is a very small fire that could have got large, but a robust amount of aircraft on this fire that kept it out of the Cleveland National Forest. And I want to go back one. I talked about pacing your data and pacing your connectivity as well. When we got to this incident, this is Southern California city, urban, right up against the foothills, and we had 0 LTE. Our police officers are like, my CAD, it doesn't work, and I'm like, yeah, we have no LTE here. And what I had done prior to this was playing around building offline maps, and I built an 80 square mile offline Google Maps vector tile package and brought it in. Thank God I did. That was the one thing that I got assigned to do structure defense along this street called Clearing, and I was like, I know it's close. I know it's around here, but my mobile CAD terminal was not working. TAC, I couldn't do anything on the internet maps, but the web maps, but I switched over to that tiled map, that cached map, and boom, I could navigate and get over there. It was, it really clicked for me, like we need to pace our tech. We need primary, alternate, contingency, and emergency plans on our data and on what we have and on our connectivity. This is just an example of a large wildfire map. Those maps I was talking about, this is the Creek Fire a couple years ago. So CAL FIRE asked me to come out and bring out TAC and just kind of field it, get some feedback. And so they were able to, our CAL OES, Office of Emergency Services, has caches of Android phones. And so we put Team Connect on it and just fielded it to get some feedback. And on this fire, there wasn't connectivity everywhere, but for the folks that have it, the safety officers loved it, to be able to see where people were at, tracking where the ambulances were field observers, and the like. The weather plugin is something we're also leveraging. And the other thing I love about TAC is leveraging all of this data that sits out there. So this is NOAA data that the National Weather Service data that is already in a plugin in TAC. That you can overlay it, you can see where you're at, you can tap on any one of these polygons and get all the metadata with it. Remote area rescues, we don't have helicopters like Ian, and we don't have a bitchin' video either, but most of our remote area rescues are along the foothills of the Cleveland National Forest. Most of them are heat related. Sometimes they get a sprained ankle, but for some reason, they're not always reading the forecast, and they go out and they run out of water. Maybe they become disoriented, lost. And so we get that, we will get those 911 phone calls. We are leveraging Rapid SOS and have the ability, because we're on Team Connect, to send that token, like was showed in the video, to mark where these people are at. Before we had this capability, it was I wouldn't call it a travesty, but it was really hard, you know. The dispatcher's asking the person, well, what can you see, you know, and trying to get, you know, locate, you know, what canyon you're on or what trail. And most of the time, if they're dehydrated, they're kind of losing it. And if they've called 911, they're already desperate. So not having to have them do anything with Rapid SOS is great. And this is just a quick little one on, what it was, September 11th. So we just marked the hiker that was injured, and then you can see our Truck 6 hiking in to go get them out. No helicopters needed, just ground stuff. But if we had needed it for extrication, bringing our Sheriff's Department on board, which I'll show you a slide later, is where we're moving towards. The Wide Area Search plugin, we see a lot of value in this. I had some great, I'm so glad I came in person this year, and I'm glad we were able to do this, because I've got to talk with the Draper folks and Ditra folks on my ideas of what this could really become, where Wide Area Search is just a specific mission within this plugin architecture. What I love about Wide Area Search plugin is it forces you into a set of symbology. We have found that sometimes during our rescues, and we don't have any set SOPs of what marker you're going to drop for what, that sometimes people will, you know, they drop a clover leaf, sometimes they drop a blue square. There hasn't been anything set yet. I'm just happy they dropped a marker, to be honest with. And they can label it, and I can figure out what it is. But we really like this architecture in WASP. And the good thing is, talking to Draper and Ditra, they're definitely into expanding this to multiple missions. So think about opening whatever we call it next, and Wide Area Search is just a mission, or you pick wildland fire or active shooter or hazmat, and all the symbology is set for you. Confined space rescue, we really want to get into this, better tracking our folks when they're underground, where they're at. Sometimes if they're going down a long tunnel, this is when the Neon TRX comes in, building mesh networks. So the Neon TRX data can get backhauled to us and report an accurate location of where our folks are at. Hazardous materials response. I brought in, you know, we have what's called a first-in guidebook in all of our fire engines, and it's just a quick down and dirty playbook for that first-in company officer. Hey, what should I do? What kind of, and so you can see here this graphic, right? We have solids, you know, isolate 75 feet, 150 feet for liquids, 300 feet for gases. And now you're trying to guess, well, where is that? I can't go right up to the thing and put out a, you know, I don't have a laser rangefinder on me. The nice thing about with doing it in TAC is I have a map, and I can go, okay, well, there's that leaking tank. Well, it's liquids. I know I need to be 150 feet away, exclusion zone, and you can just drop that immediately. And then share that across the whole team that's coming in. Just that alone is huge. And then as you expand out the incident and you start bringing in your contamination reduction zone, you know, your decon areas and your support areas, everybody knows where that's at. One thing we're really excited about was to hear that that Ditra and Draper are going to work on getting us the CBART plugin, which brings in a lot more plume modeling, a chemical index and things like that right into TAC. And you'll see this next slide we're using hazmat plume modeling in another program, and we export it as a KML, and all the metadata comes with it, and yes, we could share it across TAC, but how nice would that be able to do that right within the TAC application itself and not have to use, transfer files between programs. Swiftwater Rescue, we definitely see a lot of value in this. This is one of those dismounted operations where the fire engine parks and we have AVL, and now we're running down a river trying to find somebody or throw a bag to try to rescue them. So this is data right here that we already had. We already had all this, in a paper version or in our CAD, on our CAD map. We exported that out of our GIS as a KML, and now you can see the different symbology. It's the same symbology as in any other program, and then you can click on it and then get all the metadata with it. So this is rescue point 5. It's a vertical wall. It's going to have to be a topside rescue, and there's access gate issues to get in there. Active shooter is something else that I see a lot of value in using TAC. When we first rolled out our active shooter program, was it probably 5 years ago, when it was like, we got to do something. We're starting to get more of these, and unfortunately we had one, 3 days ago in Michigan, is these school shootings, active shooter response, getting to a campus of some sort and not knowing, the dispatcher telling you, hey, they're in this room. They're at a school, they're going to give you a room number, or I'm in the biology class, whatever it is, and then you being somewhat helpless of where this stuff is at. Years ago, we had built these overview maps in our GIS department did, and they were printed, and they would sit in the back of a battalion chief vehicle, and you may get briefed about, okay, this is where I need you to go, but you could be across the street, and now you're trying to navigate, which way do I have to go? Which way do you want me to go? And the first thing that we do on one of these active shooters is law enforcement and fire get together and figure out where we cannot operate. The first job of the first in officers is to confine the shooter. And so with TAC, we're able to draw a hot zone, and then we can expand or contract that hot zone through TAC as the incident progresses. And then as we go in and start clearing rooms or start getting information, you need to go to room J102. It's very easy. Now I have a moving map on my wrist, able to go in. And then as we clear rooms or mark victims, I don't see, we're still trying to play this out and come up with a symbology set, but, back at the incident commander, if I call in and say I've cleared a room and I have a victim there, the incident commander's assistant can do that remotely on TAC and start dropping that stuff and then broadcasting across the network. So I'm not tasked with it, with gloves on, maybe blood, things like that. And the beauty about that, too, is if we don't have a marker for a cleared room, it makes it real easy for the incident commander or operations to go, I don't have any data for this room. I need to make sure someone's cleared that. Another plugin that we're playing with this type of data is the building manager plugin. If you're urban and you need some sort of data like this for multi-story buildings, the building manager plugin allows you to stack maps on top of each other, use the plugin and call, instead of going through a list of maps, you just click on the building marker and you can pick a floor and it'll render that map. So we're really hoping to see that plugin come out of beta and become more mature and bring in actually GeoPDF maps. Right now you have to put in a KMZ. All right, situational affairs feeds that we're leveraging, video, DOT cameras, the alert wildfire camera system, some CAD stuff, traffic stuff. We actually are doing traffic in the weather plugin right now, which sounds kind of funny, but we'll talk about that. Remote sensing, satellite heat detection, using the Pix4D for a mapping engine for some of our drone flights for doing up-to-date maps of an incident. So camera feeds, California has a really robust, the DOT has got a really cool data exchange portal where you can go in and get, in these JSON formats and then, or in KML and bring them into TAC. So this is just still cameras all over the state that come in as a streaming KML. You can click on it and get, this is updated every minute. They also have live video streams that we can bring into TAC as a sensor. So this is, maybe your incident is right in view of one of these cameras. Why not leverage it? And it's pretty clear. Pretty clear video, and this is all public sourced video stuff. Another thing that Caltrans is doing with the CHP, these are CAD incident exports that come in as a streaming KML as well with the metadata. And we were just looking at one yesterday. I noticed our truck was out of district down south assisting the county fire department, and I noticed a CHP incident right where they were at, but they were like in a tract of homes. Someone had called 911 from the freeway, so it went to CHP, and they're saying, hey, I think there's a fire in this residential tract to the east of me, and they just dropped the pin, and then we got all the data with it. So another cool thing, just leverage this technology. That's what I love about TAC. It's so extensible. You can bring in so much data into it. Modus, or from NASA firms, bringing in another kind of open source feed from satellite heat detections into TAC. Next slide just shows, now you have a camera that is also looking at that same area as well. And when this popped, this is fires in in Nevada, and I saw this heat detection, and I was like, oh, do we have a camera feed? And sure enough, we had a camera feed right there. FireGuard data, thanks to Sean Triplett and their folks at the Forest Service and the Guard Bureau, we're bringing in data from, I don't know, Sean, is it classified asset or what? We're bringing in satellite detection data that used domestically to bring in new detections, new starts. And so using the Esri plugin, we're able to visualize that data. So if it's a new start, we don't have any real data on it yet, using that, or maybe you think you have a start. One of the instances we have, we get a lot of people that look up into the hills and think there's a fire. And what a great way to leverage, is there any data up there yet? Has the Guard found any heat detections up there yet? So, or we have to launch a helicopter to go see, or a 3-hour drive on a Type 3 fire engine. So we really like, and this is a great example of leveraging that data using that ArcGIS plugin. Another example of using the ArcGIS plugin is the Wi-Fi models. So also hosted in an Esri database, and you can bring the symbology along with it. Google real-time traffic. So that is one thing I would love to see TAC mature with, is bringing in either traffic maps as raster, or bring in actually vectors data that we can put over another map. That's one thing I see TAC really lacking, is real-time traffic. We're able to do this in the weather plugin because the weather plugin does not cache the map tiles. That is one thing we love about TAC, is that it caches the map tiles. So if I go into an offline mode, that I still have mapping, but for real-time traffic, that doesn't work real well. So if I'm hoping we can find someone to really improve this for us. Waze real-time traffic is an example of what we can do. So this is vector data that we can bring in and at least overlay it over something. But I'd like to find something a little cleaner, a little more official. Electric message signs, another thing that's just out there, available for us in California. These little signs are all over the highways, and you can see here a fire to the left, and we click on it. Oh, the grave, it's closed due to a wildfire. Our UAS deployment. It's one of the things we brought into TAC. When we first heard about TAC and brought it in, was what else can we do about it? I kept hearing this thing about UAS. We could do stuff with UAS. Mike's our UAS manager, and we turn him over to the folks at PAR, Mark Egan, and we start running with scissors a little bit at the beginning. And so we're on the DJI Mavic 2 Enterprise. We're using Verizon LTE, moving to T-Mobile to help improve our comms. A video solution, we're doing a Wowza server managed by PAR government, and for mapping using the Pix4D React. This is just an image of bringing in that shared geospatial video. Mike's got the thermal camera on. Now everybody can see this across the team, field of view. This is going into more native view, and so we can actually drape that imagery right over the map as well, and all the TAC markers show up on that. And I mentioned the drill. We originally started bringing TAC, or start pushing our folks a little bit more with TAC. So this is a recent search and rescue drill that we did. It was going to be a night operations, bringing our new boats into play, bringing TAC into play, and our UASs. So the story is we've got two kids out fishing at this little lake. Sunset has happened. Mom calls 911. Nobody, we can't find their kid. Last cell phone ping is out in this area. All right, so Mike is flying the drone. It's pitch black, no moon out that night. And Mike is doing a grid search. We got ground crews doing grid searches. We have boat teams out there doing grid searches. Mike is flying the drone. I'll play this little video here. Mike spots the dummy in the PFD, and then live stream, we can see the boat crew come. Mike finds the patient, marks it in TAC, broadcasts over the radio, broadcasts over the network, the marker. The boat team can go right there and grab them. And we've got this live across our network. It was profound. I would love to go run that drill today without TAC and see the difference. That really solidified it for a lot of our folks that night. Like, okay, I get it. Because if you're during the day and you're doing a drill and I can see the marker, but I can see you, it doesn't prove as valuable. But when you bring night element in, definitely adds the use of some of this geospatial information. Tracking the SPI, this is something that we brought in on the campfire. We had assets flying the fire, and I could see them flying the fire. And I called David Talley, and I said, hey, I can track the aircraft. Can I track the SPI? And he said, that's a good idea. And just something that we built back into TAC. So this is an MQ-9 on the Kincaid fire, and we're getting a perimeter basically live as the camera's moving around. Ortho imagery, this is a shot for Mike. So we had a drill. He flew the drone, did a mapping mission, brought it back into Pix4D React. No network connectivity required. We did it on scene, and then be able to push that out over TAC too. So updated live imagery. One thing I love about the pre-event Google imagery and then bringing in new imagery. So this is the campfire. So you've got your, this is what I have on Google Earth, but now I can fly the mission and then give that team that's going out there the next day updated imagery of, what houses are burned down this street. And bring that right into TAC. Check my time here. All right. This is where I get to brag about my friends, my TAC squad. I have never met a more great group of folks dedicated to moving TAC forward. I got Brad Schmidt in the room, Leck Leiter, Greg Albrecht, Dave Zader, Dave Merrick. We're all in this Slack channel full of nerds trying to make this product better, finding new ways to leverage it. So this last year, Greg, Connor Spears, who's probably on virtual, and Joe Austin built some really neat stuff for us, and we'll go over that, some really cool integrations. First is, if any one of users want to do this right now and you got your phones out, you can go to tinyurl.com/alertfire, and that will automatically download a data package onto your device, and you can use the import manager and bring over 900 cameras into TAC. And this is straight from the Alert Wildfire. Now, right now, it doesn't do the live field of view. You kind of got to go into the camera view there and look at the x-axis and manipulate it manually, but we're hoping one day with a relationship with them that we'll have a live feed of the field of view. But this is a fire, I forget. We had so many fires this season, I forget which one this is, but you can see in this map here, we've got mapping, aircraft, field of view from the cameras. This is a Greg Albrecht, who's sitting right here. Raise your hand, Greg. Solution for us. So we have AVL in our CAD, and I'm like, well, I want to bring that into TAC, So we already had a solution. We were spitting out this location to a program in California called Scout, and so Greg took that same endpoint and pushed it into TAC, and so this is a marker of all of our fire engines, not TAC devices, just our fire engines that sit in our CAD. Another thing we do is pseudo CAD integration, I guess you could call it. So we use a program called PulsePoint. Was originally developed to get better community CPR and let the community know that you have got a cardiac arrest, but it's getting all the calls from CAD. So PulsePoint started expanding, what kind of alerts they're doing. So we had allowed Greg to intercept that feed and then push that into TAC, and now I can see all the data with it. So this is a sick patient, the address, who's assigned to the unit, and then you can see, our guys are on scene, and they've got that. You can see that the phone is still on the engine, the tablet is inside the residence, treating they're treating the patient. ADSB exchange, so Nick, Greg, and Connor are bringing in ADSB exchange data live into TAC. This is a video that Connor made. This is a fire out in Ventura, I believe, but ADSB, we're getting about every 4 seconds a new position update on the aircraft. And then we're able to put that in 3D view as well. And then you can see the live wildfire camera on the right. One thing that Connor took it to the next level and said, well, I'd really like to know a little bit more about these aircraft, and could we do that with adjusting the symbology set? So we brought in a public safety air icon set. So now you know if it's an air attack, an air tanker, if it's an intel aircraft, if it's military, is the National Guard, is a public, local government, and then we can see also if it's a helicopter, if it has rescue capabilities, if it's got a hoist. We know that just from looking at the symbol. So you can see here our local helicopter, CAL FIRE Copter 301, rescue capabilities on this map here. Another thing that Greg and Connor worked on was bringing this Stratix to COT integration. So brought a Stratix receiver up on a fire and to improve our coverage for ADSB, and then link that down to the radio network down in the incident command post. And then there where they had internet, pumped it out for everybody else. Another one of Greg, it's just going to be Greg. APRS, so bringing ham radio into TAC as well. So APRS, these are all ham users. AIS, so the automatic information system brought over Marine VHF radios, also into TAC. One program last year, a little bit of, I think, collaboration with CAL FIRE and the Forest Service prior fire season was working with Northrop Grumman's Firebird, and we were able to working with those folks there, grab the data off the GCS and push it into UAS tool as a generic UAS, and that worked out pretty well. A real exciting program in California that started in 2019 is the FIRUS program. It's an R&D program with the state. So this aircraft has an imager on it, and they're up flying over these incidents. They go straight initial attack, they start flying it, they collect the data. They're sending it SATCOMs back to Intera. Intera hosts that data as a KML network link, and we're able to get that data in an initial attack within 10 to 15 minutes of a fire, of us getting on scene. And this is a fire that Mike and I were on this last summer. Small fire along the Highway 71, but what's unique about this fire is it had burned downhill, wind-driven from the coast down into what we call the Prado Basin. This is a big dammed area which gets a lot of heavy fuels, and you cannot see, 20 feet in front of you. The cool thing about this, or the problem set we had on this fire, was I could see all the spot fires out ahead of us, and the aircraft were just hitting them, opportunities that they could. So the helicopters would come up, drop water, and they would almost put the fire out to the point where you couldn't see the smoke anymore. Like, where was that spot? We're gonna have to cut our ways in there. FIRUS was up. We could see all 3 spot fires that we had, and then we made sure that we had 3 different crews on 3 different spot fires, and it really helped make sure that we didn't leave anything out there. And believe me, we were worried that night, like, I don't want to come back tonight at 2 in the morning for another fire. So that was a great use of the FIRUS program during initial attack.
Wi-Fi model in TAC. This is Rich Drojan from CAL FIRE. You never want to see that as a TAC user, that you're right in the middle of the fire model. But a good example of bringing in this data. Aero computers, Bernalillo County Sheriff, the same folks that do that came over our city, and all of our TAC users are showing up in the Aero computers, so targeted. The Plugnix application, this is a great little tool if you're using Motorola radios and you're on that team, that you can send the data back and forth. This is me and Connor testing this. So you're able to, this is peer-to-peer, radio to radio over VHF. It will send an automatic update interval of your location, and then you're able to send shapes back and forth. You know, you're not sending video, this is small packets, but, and then the Somewhere device deployed this last year. This is Connor's truck. I'm not going to spend too much time on it because Dave Merrick talked about, you know, how valuable it was to use the SATCOMs when you don't have cell. And then chat capabilities there as well. Beartooth radio, we're really happy with our Beartooths. As a very simple operation. We love the ability of seeing the network scan on the device. And just, like I said, pacing your comms. You know, you got to have an alternative plan to LTE. Doodle Labs, we've been testing this. We tested it out here as well. So using the Doodle Labs mesh radios and actually sending, using the Doodle Labs mesh to bring video out of our UASs as well. Critical response group, they are great. They do a lot of mapping, indoor mapping. And so we were able to, I really see the value with this, with improving our maps for our schools. And so we were able to lobby. We had our IT department paid to get our city hall done, and we convinced the school district. So they're mapping all 50 schools. So we'll have much better data if we do get, you know, hopefully we'll never have to use it for, but even just an EMS call at the school. You know, they're in this class. We're always confused. Someone has to greet us and get us in there. I said that better essay. This is a little fun part. Does it run on Android? This is new. Mike found out that his Peloton ran on Android, and so we're like, well, let's put TAC on it. So that was kind of a fun one. Last year, Phoenix Automotive, Mike put this in his truck. This is just an Android, basically a replacement of your head unit. BlueStacks emulator, we've been trying that with the Toughbooks. It doesn't meet all the requirements we would need. Put on the Chromebook, you know. We're really excited about maybe Windows 11 has, but I don't know if that's as important because I've heard what's going to happen with TAC-X. So my thing is we have Panasonic Toughbooks and most fire engines, cop cars, TAC-X. You know, WinTAC was never really, it was meant for a desktop with a mouse, and so it lacked that, you know, touch capability. All right, integrations we're after. We'd like to see, I mentioned WASP, building manager, getting PDF support, maybe a code some coding, so if I dropped a marker and I had floor 2 map up, that grouped floor 2 markers together. Weather report, lightning data sets, nationwide RAWs, and a lot of data that the National Weather Service already has. Stack Manager, a forked version of that for wildfire air asset management. More civ tailoring of ATAC, and I've talked with the steering board this week about how do we get, you know, how do we get more, maybe get it more public safety driven. Civilian roles, you know, no, we're not all our guys like to choose sniper. You know, we need more roles like bulldozer, fire engine, the typing. And then I mentioned before the traffic layers. Something we're working on with Syzygy is getting through DHS a Kestrel plugin forked out of the ballistics. We're bringing it for wildfire and hazmat. CAD integration, someone mentioned it earlier. Having a legit CAD integration. This is just Android split string with TAC on the left and a CAD app on the right. TAC evangelism. These are the folks that we brought in this last year. You know, Riverside County Sheriff's moving forward on that drill we did with our UASs. California Fish and Wildlife came up. We pushed them to Mike Teagan. Mike Teagan spun up a TAC server. Boom, they're in. It was pretty cool. And also the Arizona Search and Rescue folks are really moving forward with TAC. Challenges, you know, connectivity is our Achilles heel. So, you know, getting more stuff out, you know, in our cell denied areas. Tactics, I'm keeping my fingers crossed that we can move that into the Civ world. The mobile 11 thing, I put that on there before I heard more about TACX. More plugins in the Play Store, and then oversight, I mentioned with the steering board. We'd like to see, us to be able to steer the product a little more, and some standard public safety icons. Integration opportunities, airborne LTE, Google Balloon, UAS LTE for these fires, terrestrial stuff. We're working with, Brad, what's the name of the university? Michigan Tech. Working with Brad with Colorado on the data ferry. Somewhere Labs Link has a great opportunity, I think, for LTE that I would love to see leverage at some point. And then satellite broadband with Starlink. And then the Rapid SOS have a legit opportunity to send to Team Connect or attack server right from their web portal. The CAD client messaging, and then there's a project with MIT called Nix that we'd like to see some more opportunity with. That's it. If you haven't, I know I've got 2 minutes left for any questions. Here's my QR code with my contact information. And that hour went by fast for me, at least. You guys are probably dying. All right, well, thank you guys.